Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're making this mesh tie front cardigan. This is a really fun project and it's worked entirely in one piece. I'll be showing you how to make a size small in the video. For the materials, I'll be using Loops and Threads Classic Cotton Big Ball of Yarn. This is a medium number 4 weight yarn. It's 100% cotton and it's in the color Chiffon. You'll also need a 3.5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. To start the project, take a tail of yarn about this length, wrap it around 2 fingers, and cross it over to create an X. Grab your crochet hook, insert under the first strand, and grab the second strand to pull it underneath. Then we'll remove the fingers and pull up to tighten. To start, chain 94. Here's what the chain looks like, and now for the first row we will start by working a single crochet in the back bumps only. So if you look closely, there's back bumps on each of these chains. So right here is the back bump, and in that second chain from the hook, we're going to insert our crochet hook into that back bump, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on the hook. Repeat working a single crochet in each of the back bumps of the chains until the end of the row. At the end of the setup row, this is what our chain looks like. And this will lead us into our very first row. So for row 1, we will chain 3, turn our work, and we're going to work 1 double crochet in the same stitch, yarn over, insert the crochet hook in the first stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we're going to chain 1, skip over 3 stitches, and work a V-stitch. To do a V-stitch, we'll do a double crochet, then chain 1, and work another double crochet in the same stitch. And we're going to repeat this pattern of chain 1, skip 3 stitches, and V-stitch until the end of the row. And before we keep going, I'm going to mark the right side of my work with a stitch marker, just so I can keep track of this later on. This is optional, but it does help to have it. So I'm just adding a stitch marker on that correct side. And if we flip it back, this is the wrong side. As you keep working along, you'll start to notice the pattern forming 2 different shapes. So this upside down V would be the V-stitch, and the trapezoid shape would be the chain space. Continue to work this pattern until the end of the row, and when you reach that last stitch, you're going to work a V-stitch inside of that. So after you do that last V-stitch, I'll show you how we're going to section off this cardigan using stitch markers. Now we will section off the cardigan, so go ahead and grab some stitch markers or safety pins and mark the second V-stitch right here. After you place a marker there, we will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So place a second marker in this V-stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Place your third marker in the 9th stitch here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And place the last marker in this stitch. So this will be the 2 front panels, the sleeves, and the back panel. And we're going to be increasing these sections to construct the cardigan. To start row 2, we will chain 3, and the chain 3 counts as the first double crochet of the row. Turn your work, and before we start, I'm going to remark the right side of our work since I removed it earlier to use that stitch marker for the sections. So I'm just placing a safety pin in here, and this is going to help us identify the correct side of our cardigan as we work on more rows. So now we can continue with the row, and after you chain 3, we're going to work a double crochet in the V-stitch from last round. So yarn over, insert your crochet hook to pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And after that, we will chain 1. And in the next chain space, we're going to work a V-stitch. So if you remember, the V-stitch is just a double crochet, followed by a chain 1, and a double crochet in the same chain space. And then we will chain 1. And now inside of every marked V-stitch that we have for this row, we're going to place a V-stitch within that V. So yarn over and work a double crochet, chain 1, yarn over and insert a double crochet back into the same V-stitch. Chain 1, and now you can see that we inserted another V on top of that V-stitch. So after you do this, you can remove the stitch marker from the bottom V in row 1 and place it into the newly created V-stitch in row 2. And this will help us when we continue to increase in the following rounds. So you can see our next space is a chain space, so we're going to work a V-stitch. So once again, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, chain 1, go back in and work another double crochet, chain 1, and for the next V, you can see that this is not marked, so we'll skip over it and go into the chain space. And it does look marked because of the safety pin, but that's just to keep track of the front of our work. So I'm going in with a V-stitch in that chain space, chain 1, and we're just going to repeat this pattern for the rest of the row. So once again, I'll skip over that V because it's not marked, and I'm just going to work a V-stitch within each chain space until I reach the next marked V. I've reached the next stitch marker, so what I'll do is work a V-stitch in that V, chain 1, go back in, work the second double crochet, chain 1, and to make it easier for our next row, I'm going to move that stitch marker into the new V. So that's our second increase there. And now we'll just continue repeating the same pattern until we reach the next stitch marker. So I already did that third stitch marker and I'm at the last one now. So I'm going to work a V-stitch inside of that V. I'll place the stitch marker back inside. And work a V-stitch in the chain space. And in the last space, this is a V-stitch, so we're going to work a V-stitch inside of that V. And now we will turn our work. And to start row 3, we're going to chain 3. And because we ended that last row with a V-stitch inside the V, when we start this new row, after chaining 3, we're going to skip over that V and work into the chain space. So we're going to do a V-stitch inside of that chain space. So you'll notice every other round we're alternating, starting with an increase and ending with an increase, and this helps to prevent the cardigan from drastically increasing in size. So that's why we're doing the alternating rows. So we'll skip over that next V and work another V-stitch in the chain space. And we've reached the first stitch marker, so what we'll do is work a V-stitch inside of that V. Don't forget to remove your marker and move it up to the new V-stitch. And we'll continue the same pattern from last row. We'll work a V-stitch inside of each chain space and skip over the V's that are not marked. So we're only going to do a V-stitch inside of the chain spaces and the marked V's. So go ahead and work this pattern until you reach the end of row 3. At the end of row 3, you can see that the last space is a V-stitch, so we're going to work 1 double crochet in that last V. To start row 4, chain 3, turn your work, and work a double crochet in the first chain space, chain 1, and work a V-stitch in the next chain space. So we'll skip over that V and work a V-stitch in the space. So we'll continue the same pattern we've been doing for this row. Work a V-stitch inside of all the marked V's and work a V-stitch inside of the chain spaces. For the last space, we have a turning chain space. So for row 3, we did an increase, and you can see in the previous rows, row 2, we have a V-stitch, so we increased there, and we increased in the first row. So for this row, we're going to do a V-stitch in that last turning chain space. So because this row was an increase, we should have the same number of V stitches on both sides. So I have 4 on this side and 4 on this side. So go ahead and count that to make sure it lines up. So now for row 5, we're going to chain 3, turn your work, and we're going to work a double crochet in the first V-stitch, chain 1, and repeat the pattern of V-stitch in each chain 1 space until you reach each marker. So we'll skip over the V's that aren't marked as we've been doing, and continue working a V-stitch inside of all the chain spaces and a V-stitch in every marked V-stitch space. At the end of the row, our last space is a V-stitch, so we're going to work a V-stitch inside of that space. So if you look below, you can see that row 3 had no increases. So row 3 is right here. So we had no increase in that row. And row 4 had an increase because there's a V-stitch. So for row 5, we're also going to increase by adding a V-stitch. So the pattern is going to be no increase, followed by 2 rows of increases. So after we do a V-stitch, you can count to make sure that you have the same number of V's on both ends. So I counted and I have 5 V's on each side. For rows 6 to 15, we're going to repeat rows 3 to 5. So to start row 6, I chained 3, turned my work, and row 3 was a no increase row, so we're going to skip over that first V and work our first V-stitch directly in the chain space. So that's how we'll start row 6, and we'll continue to do a V-stitch in all of the marked V's, as well as the chain spaces. So repeat rows 3 to 5 until row 15, and if you repeat rows 3 to 5, you should get up to row 14, which would be an increase. So we'll do an increase in row 14, and for row 15, we're also going to do an increase row. So when you get to row 15, remember to work an increase row. So just to explain again, a no increase row would end with a double crochet in that last space. And after you do your chain, you'll skip over the first V in the row. And for increase rows, you're going to be ending with a V-stitch in that last space. So continue this pattern until you reach row 15, and then I'll show you how to work on the body. After 15 rows, you can start to see the cardigan constructing the front panels and the sleeves. So if you fold it like this on both ends, you can see that there is a diagonal line which separates both of the sleeves right here, and this would be the sleeve hole on this side, and these 2 sections would be the front panels and the other sleeve hole. And we're not going to be increasing anymore, we'll just work regular rows for the body. But at this point, feel free to try on your cardigan to determine if you want to add or remove rows of increases. To start the body, you can arrange your cardigan like this with both front panels flipped over. I'm going to chain 3, turn my work, and we'll work a double crochet in the first stitch, chain 1, and work a V-stitch inside of the chain spaces. So we're going to repeat working a V-stitch in every chain space until we reach the corner V-stitch. And it is a good idea to still keep your stitch markers marked in those V-stitches, just so we have a reference when we're connecting the sleeve holes. And if I zoom out to show you, I'm working all the way from this end to this end. So in every chain space, I'm working a V-stitch until we reach that marker. So I've reached the stitch marker, and what I'm going to do is we're not going to work a V inside of that stitch, but we're going to connect the sleeve holes together. To do that, we're going to skip this entire section and line up both of those corner stitch markers like this. So you can see that this would be where the sleeve hole is, and I'm going to do a V-stitch to connect these. So how I'm going to do that is we're going to insert our crochet hook into the chain space right before the stitch marker. So right here is where I want to insert the V-stitch to connect them. So yarn over and work a double crochet, chain 1, and go back into that same chain space and work another double crochet, chain 1. So now our sleeve hole is made, and we're going to continue working a V-stitch in every chain space until we reach the second corner to connect the other sleeve hole. I went ahead and worked a V-stitch in all the chain spaces, and now I've reached that second marker. So what I'm going to do is skip a whole section like we did for the first sleeve and line up the stitch markers like this. And we're going to work a V-stitch to connect the sleeve hole. We're going to work in the chain space that is to the left of that V-stitch. So right here, yarn over, work a double crochet, chain 1, and go back into the same space and work a double crochet and chain 1. So that's our V-stitch, and for the remainder of the row, we're going to work a V-stitch in every chain space, and when we reach the last space, we're going to do a V-stitch. To start row 17, chain 4. Turn your work. And we're going to skip over that first V and work a V-stitch in the chain space. And we're going to repeat this pattern of doing a V-stitch and chain 1 in every chain space until the end of the row. So we're no longer going to be increasing in any of the V's, we're just skipping over all of them and doing a V-stitch in each of the chain spaces. At this point in the project, we no longer need the stitch markers, but you can keep them in to help with a later part of the project when we start working on the sleeves, but it is optional. If you want to go ahead and remove them, then you can do so. When you reach this part where we connected the sleeve holes, we're going to work a V-stitch in that space. So in the space in between, yarn over, work a double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, work another double crochet, and chain 1. So for the remainder of the row, we're going to work a V-stitch in every chain space, and when we get to the second sleeve area, we're going to do a V-stitch in that space, and in our last space, we're going to do a double crochet. So continue this pattern until the end of the row. And here's a zoomed out visual to see where I am in the cardigan and the point that I'm going to work up to. So I'm working all the way up to the end, which is going to be right here. I've made it to the last chain space, and we're going to work 1 double crochet in that space. To start row 18, chain 3, turn your work, and we're going to work 1 double crochet, chain 1 in the first chain space. Then in the next chain space, we're going to work a V-stitch. So if you notice, we chained 3 to start this round, and we worked 1 double crochet in that first chain space. So for the next round, we're going to work chain 4 and then skip over that first space. So we're going to alternate rows of chaining 3 and chaining 4. So continue this pattern of V-stitch in every chain space until the end of the row. And at the end of the row, in the last chain space, we will work a V-stitch. For rows 19 to 22, we're going to repeat rows 17 and 18 until the number of rows reaches the desired length of your cardigan. So I chained 4 to start row 19, and we're going to skip over that first space and work a V-stitch in the next chain space. So continue to repeat row 17 and 18 until you reach the length that you want, and then we'll start working on the ribbing or border around the cardigan. So I stopped after row 22, and I'm going to keep it a little cropped, but you can keep going if you want to make it longer. Once you reach the length that you want, we can start working on the border on the bottom of the cardigan. So first I'm going to chain 1, and then I'll turn my work, and we're going to work a single crochet in the top 3 stitches of the V-stitch. I've zoomed in a bit so you can see where I'm working. This is the first stitch where I'm going to work a single crochet, and the second stitch in the middle of that V, which is right here, so work a single crochet in that second stitch, and the third stitch would be right here. So after you work 3 single crochets, we're going to skip over the chain space and work another 3 single crochets in the top of this V. So in those top 3 stitches, we're going to work single crochets. Then we'll skip over that chain space and work another 3 single crochets. And I think the single crochet stitches really bring together the cardigan, and it adds a nice border to the bottom. So just continue working these single crochets in the top of the V-stitch, skip over the chain space, and work another 3 single crochets in the next V-stitch. So this will be the pattern for the bottom border. So continue working on this until you reach the last V-stitch, which is all the way on the other end, right here. After finishing the bottom border and doing the last 3 single crochets, you'll chain 1, and we're going to start working the inner border. And for every row, we're going to work 2 single crochets in that space. So you can see that there is a big hole, and that would be considered the row. So we're just going to work 2 single crochets in each row along the inner border of the front panel. And when you get to the top where the collar is, we're just going to work regular single crochets and then continue to work 2 single crochets in every row until you reach the very end. So I worked my way up and around and all the way to the bottom, and now I'm going to work my last 3 single crochets in this V-stitch to end the row. And you can continue to add more rows for the border if you'd like to make it a little thicker. I'm going to stop with 1 row for the bottom border and the inner border, and I'm also going to do the same thing for the sleeves. But feel free to continue adding more rows to the border if you'd like. And at the end, I'm going to just slip stitch into this second stitch here to close it off. And once you finish the border, we can fasten off. So grab a pair of scissors to snip the yarn and then pull it through. Here's a little preview of the cardigan. I think it looks really cute with the border that we added, and I'm going to work on adding long sleeves to this, but you can choose to keep it short sleeve and it will still look really nice. So I'll show you how to make the long sleeves next. And you want to make sure that your cardigan is facing the correct side. So wherever you marked that stitch marker earlier, just make sure that's in the front. So my safety pin's right there, and I'm going to work on the sleeves. So I kept those stitch markers in from the beginning, and I'm going to use that to help me attach yarn. So what I'll do first is create a slip knot. And if you did remove your stitch markers earlier, then that's okay. You can just insert into any V. So I'm going to insert the crochet hook and pull that slip knot through, and then I'm going to chain 1. And we're going to slip stitch to the V on the other side of that little gap. So you can see that there's a gap that's left behind when we connected the sleeve holes. So I'll insert into that V and work a slip stitch. And it does leave a pretty big hole behind, but we can sew this later on. So after attaching the yarn and slip stitching the V's together, we're going to start our first row of the sleeve. So I'm going to slip stitch to that chain space right next to that V, and then chain 3. In that same space, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 1, and just like we did with the body, we're going to skip over the V and work a V stitch inside of the chain spaces. So for our sleeve, we're not going to be doing any increases. If you do want to make your sleeve a little more flared, then you can do rows of increases, or if you wanted to have the sleeve cave in a little bit, then you can decrease as well. But I'm going to make this just one width, so I'm not going to be doing any increases or decreases. I'll just repeat the pattern of a V stitch in every chain space. And when we reach the end of the row, we're going to work a slip stitch in the very first V stitch to join the round. To start the next round, we will chain 3, turn our work, and repeat the pattern of working a V stitch inside of every chain space. So continue working these rows until you reach the desired length for your sleeve. So for my cardigan, I stopped after 26 rows for the sleeve, and I made it about 3/4 length. And now I'm going to add a border to the cuff of the sleeve. So chain 1, turn our work, and to start, I'm going to work a single crochet into the top of this first V. And after I do that, I'm going to work 1 single crochet in the chain space. And now in this next V, I'm going to work 3 single crochets. So the pattern for the border of the sleeve will be 1 single crochet in each stitch at the top of the V. So we'll work 3 single crochets and 1 single crochet in every chain 1 space. So repeat this pattern along the border of the sleeve. And if you wanted to decrease the sleeve cuff, you can add more single crochets inside of the chain spaces to help decrease the sleeve faster. Or if you wanted to add a different type of border to the end of the sleeve, like a ribbed cuff, you could work back loop half double crochets, and that would look really nice. I personally like the single crochet border for this type of cardigan. It creates a nice seamless edge, and in my opinion is a lot quicker than working on the ribbed cuff. And after working this row, I chained 1 and worked a regular single crochet row. So this just made the border a lot thicker. So after slip stitching to the very first stitch, we can fasten off. So take your scissors to cut off the yarn and pull the yarn through. And with the loose strands, you can choose to weave it into the project or cut it off. After finishing the sleeve on one end, you'll repeat the same pattern to make the second sleeve. So remember to find the gap and attach your yarn to this first V and connect it by slip stitching to the V on the other side. Before I work on the second sleeve, I'll be showing you how to make the tie cord. You can choose any spot to add your cords to. I'm going to add mine right at the bottom of the chest, so take a stitch marker or your crochet hook to mark the point that you're going to add the cord to. And you're going to want to leave a really long tail. I suggest about 120 inches, just because the stitch we're working on is a little thicker and requires more yarn. So first we'll make a slip knot, and we're going to attach this to the space where my crochet hook is. So I zoomed in a bit, and I'm going to pull that slip knot through, and you want the tail of yarn to be on the bottom and the working yarn to be on the top. So once you have that formation, we're going to take the tail of yarn and wrap it around the crochet hook like this. And taking our working yarn, we're going to wrap it around the hook and pull that through the 2 loops. So again, we'll yarn over with the tail, yarn over with the working yarn, and pull through both loops. Yarn over with the tail, yarn over with the working yarn, and pull through both of the loops. And doing it this way is really nice because it creates a thick cord rather than just doing a regular chain and then going back in and working single crochets. This helps to speed up the process, and it creates a really nice tie cord for the cardigan. So you'll repeat this pattern until you reach your desired length for the tie cord. I did about 100 to 110 chains. I made my tie cord a little bit past the bottom of the cardigan, but not too long, just so it's not in the way. So I'd recommend making it long enough so that you're able to tie a knot in the middle. To finish off the tie cord, take both of the strands and make a chain with them. Then we can cut the yarn to fasten off. So pull the yarn through, and I'm going to tie a knot just so it stays secure. And to make the other tie cord, you would repeat the same exact pattern on the other side, making sure that they're both parallel. And the last part of the cardigan will be to just weave in loose ends and sew any big holes that we made during the project. So these are the 2 large holes from earlier when we were making the sleeve hole, and I'm going to close this up. So I'm going to attach some yarn, and I'll tie a knot here to secure the yarn in place. Then taking a yarn needle, we're going to pick up a strand on this side and go through a strand or 2 on the other side and pull the yarn needle through. And this is going to help close up the really big hole. I'm going to do this a few times, just weaving in and out of this large hole to close it up. And to secure the yarn when I'm done, I'm going to go through a few strands and tie a knot. And the final part would be to snip off the yarn. And I didn't show this in the video, but you can weave in the remaining loose ends or choose to cut them off. So now our sleeve hole is covered up, and this is the final cardigan. I really hope you had fun and learned a lot making this cardigan. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.